Premier League has had some of the greatest players to ever grace the game. With the transfer window looming, let's find out what buying a top Premier League player truly costs. In this video, we'll use English maestro Jack Grealish as an example. One of the most skillful players in recent times, Jack scored a big money move to Manchester City in August 2021. At that time, it was reported as a British record. But what is the full cost of buying an elite Premier League player? Well, there are two core items to factor in: the cost of the player's wages and the transfer fee. In this example, we're buying Jack Grealish 2.0 for our team, so let's first work out the staff costs. Reports varied, but Grealish's wages are said to be around £300,000 a week. Yes, that's right, £300,000 every 7 days. Well, on top of that, there will be other costs the clubs need to pay for, such as national insurance and additional benefits, but for simplicity, let's assume that's another 30% on top. So every week we will have to pay out 0.4 million. Times that by 52 weeks in a year, and that's a total of 20.8 million a year. That's a fair amount of dosh.
Something's happening to me. Spend all my money on.
But let's remember, Grealish signed a 6-year deal. So how does that stack up at Finance HQ? Well, here's our profit and loss statement, cash flows and balance sheet. Assuming Jack is paid at the end of each month, we will see 21 million cash go out the door and a 21 million cost to the P&L each year. Over 6 years, that's 125 million in staff costs alone. And what about that transfer fee? Grealish was sold for a reported 100 million. We don't have much insight into the agent's fees and other costs associated, so again, for simplicity in this example, let's assume that 100 million was the total cash we paid for Jack 2.0. You may remember from our previous video on the Premier League contract cap that the 100 million transfer fee can be spread across a maximum of 5 years now. So even if we were to sign Jack 2.0 to a 6-year deal, the P&L would see a further 20 million amortization expense for the first 5 years. So what happens when we add those two together? Over 6 years, the total cash out the door is 225 million, nearly £250 million for one player. And in each of those first 5 years, 41 million alone will hit the P&L. How can teams afford this? Well, the harsh reality is most cannot. In our series looking at the financial impact of the Premier League, go and check them out if you haven't already done so, we've looked at Burnley, Crystal Palace and Brighton. In 2022, their revenues range from 120 to 175 million. On the other hand, Jack's current club, Manchester City, dwarfs all of these with a whopping 613 million revenue made in the same period.
We have a lot of money to buy a lot of incredible players.
An astonishing amount. If we lay over that annual 41 million cost of Jack 2.0, we see that this one player alone would eat up a third of Burnley's entire revenue. It's marginally better for Palace and Brighton, but that massive revenue for Man City means a transfer of this size has less impact, at just 7%. It really is a different game at the top of the Premier League. So there you have it, the total cost of buying a peak Premier League player laid out.
Happy with what you've seen?
Did you enjoy?
I loved it.
It's enough.
See you next time.